Hey folks, in today's Conundrum we will cover the case of Randall Brent Woodfield, also known as the I-5 Killer or the I-5 Bandit, an American serial killer, rapist, kidnapper, robber, and burglar. He gained notoriety for his crimes committed along the Interstate 5 corridor in Washington, Oregon, and California. Woodfield was suspected of multiple sexual assaults and murders, although he was convicted for only one murder. However, he has been linked to a total of 18 murders, and is suspected of having killed up to 44 people. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please subscribe, and put the notifications bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. Randall Woodfield was born into an upper-middle-class family in Salem, Oregon, on December 26, 1950. Growing up in Otter Rock, a small town near Newport, he enjoyed popularity and excelled in football at Newport High School. However, his adolescence was marked by sexually dysfunctional behavior, including public exposure. Despite an incident of exposing himself to girls on a bridge, his football coaches protected his reputation. After high school, Woodfield attended Treasure Valley Community College and later transferred to Portland State University, where he played as a wide receiver for the Portland State Vikings. Although he was described as polite and coachable by his football coach, Woodfield had a series of petty run-ins with the law during his college years. Arrests for vandalism, public indecency, and similar offenses marred his record. Despite these setbacks, he was selected by the Green Bay Packers in the 1974 NFL Draft, but failed to secure a spot on the team's final roster. Woodfield then played with the semi-pro Manitowoc Chiefs while working for Oshkosh Truck. Disappointed by his football career's failure, Woodfield returned to Portland in late 1974. In early 1975, a series of knife-wielding assaults on women occurred in the city, with victims being forced into oral sex and robbed. Woodfield's criminal behavior escalated, and he was eventually caught with marked money from an undercover officer. He confessed to the crimes, attributing his actions to poor sexual impulse control linked to steroid use. In April 1975, Woodfield pled guilty to reduced charges of second-degree robbery and received a 10-year prison sentence. However, he was released on parole in July 1979 after serving 4 years. This marked the beginning of a more sinister chapter in his life, with a series of murders and further criminal activities to follow. The murders and subsequent crimes committed by Randall Woodfield marked a dark and violent chapter in his life. The first known murder occurred on October 9, 1980, when Cherie Lynn Ayers, a former classmate and X-ray technician, was brutally raped and murdered in her downtown Portland apartment. Although suspicions pointed to Woodfield, as they had been in correspondence during his previous incarceration, no charges were filed due to a lack of evidence. Just a month later, on Thanksgiving Day, Woodfield arrived at the home of Darcy Renee Fix, intending to assault her. Alongside Douglas Keith Altig, who happened to be present at the time, both Fix and Altig were bound and executed inside the house. The investigation did not yield enough conclusive evidence to link Woodfield to the murders, despite his acquaintance with Fix. After these first murders, Woodfield embarked on a series of robberies that earned him the moniker of the I-5 Bandit. His preferred targets were located along the Interstate 5 corridor, which stretches through multiple states. Wearing disguises, including fake beards, and armed with a gun, Woodfield committed a string of robberies and sexual assaults from December 1980 to January 1981. His victims included waitresses, store clerks, and even young girls whom he subjected to heinous acts of sexual abuse. The crimes escalated in their brutality and violence. Woodfield invaded homes, sexually assaulted victims, and left a trail of terror in his wake. On February 3, 1981, the bodies of Donna Eckert and her 14-year-old daughter were discovered, both shot in the head. Evidence pointed to sexual assault against the young girl as well. Woodfield continued his spree, robbing stores and sexually assaulting victims in different locations, including California and Oregon. The violence reached a climax on Valentine's Day, when Woodfield planned a party at a hotel in Portland. However, no guests showed up, leading him to drive to the home of 18-year-old Julie Wrights. In the early morning hours of February 15th, Woodfield raped and fatally shot Wrights. The scene revealed chilling details of the encounter, such as the unfinished preparation of coffee, indicating the abrupt and tragic end to Wrights' life. These horrifying crimes left communities terrified and law enforcement agencies on high alert. Woodfield's actions demonstrated a cold and calculated disregard for human life, as he continued to escalate his violence and prey upon unsuspecting victims. Randall Woodfield's reign of terror came to an end when law enforcement finally caught up with him. After a months-long investigation and an extensive manhunt, Woodfield was apprehended on March 4, 1981. His arrest was a result of his connection to the string of robberies, sexual assaults, and murders that had plagued the Pacific Northwest. Woodfield faced a long and complex legal process as he was brought to trial. The evidence against him was overwhelming, with witnesses, survivors, and forensic evidence tying him to the heinous crimes he had committed. Although Woodfield vehemently denied his involvement, the weight of the evidence presented a compelling case against him. In June 1981, Woodfield stood trial for the murder of Sherry Hull and the attempted murder of her co-worker, Beth Wilmot. The jury listened to the prosecution's compelling arguments and the heartbreaking testimonies of survivors who had endured the horrors of Woodfield's crimes. The defense, on the other hand, attempted to cast doubt on the evidence and challenge the credibility of witnesses. Ultimately, the jury found Woodfield guilty on multiple charges. He was sentenced to life imprisonment plus an additional 90 years for his crimes. In a subsequent trial, he was convicted of sodomy and improper use of a weapon in a sexual assault case, receiving an additional 35 years to his sentence. Throughout the legal proceedings, Woodfield maintained his innocence and never confessed to any of the crimes he was accused of or convicted for. However, the overwhelming evidence and the testimony of survivors left no doubt in the minds of the jury and the public about his guilt. Randall Woodfield's arrest and subsequent trial marked the culmination of a terrifying crime spree that had devastated communities and left many lives shattered. His conviction brought a sense of justice to the victims and their families, providing closure and the hope of healing in the aftermath of his heinous acts. Following his conviction, Randall Woodfield has been serving his sentences at the Oregon State Penitentiary in Salem. In 1983, he was injured during a prison disturbance involving another inmate. In 1987, Woodfield filed a libel lawsuit against author Ann Rule, seeking $12 million in damages. However, the lawsuit was dismissed by the federal court in Oregon in 1988 due to the expiration of the statute of limitations. Over time, the number of victims connected to Woodfield continued to grow. By 1990, he was suspected of being involved in as many as 44 homicides. In 2001 and 2006, DNA testing linked him to 2 additional murders that took place in Oregon between 1980 and 1981. During his incarceration, Woodfield married 3 times but has since divorced twice. He gained some attention for the letters he wrote from prison, which were later compiled and published as the Serial Killer Letters. In one of these letters, he expressed a desire for personal connection and suggested a phone call with a journalist. Woodfield's modus operandi involved targeting thin white women in their 20s, often from middle-class backgrounds. Many of his victims were employees of restaurants and convenience stores located along the Interstate 5 corridor. He would disguise himself with a hoodie, a fake beard, and sometimes used athletic tape across his nose to avoid identification. Woodfield's attacks ranged from random to incited by rejected sexual advances. His crimes were sexually motivated, with the majority of his victims being shot. Detectives noted his lack of remorse and responsibility for his actions. Woodfield displayed egotism during his interrogations and believed that women wanted him, denying any need to rape them. It is believed that his feelings of rejection and inadequacy played a role in driving him to commit acts of violence. Unlike many serial killers who exhibit cooling-off periods, Woodfield's crimes escalated rapidly, with the frequency of his murders and other criminal activities increasing over time.
Thank you to all who have stuck with me until the end of the video. All small creators like me have certain goals in mind when we embark on this journey, and reaching 1/4 of that goal is my first significant milestone.
Since we all share a common interest in similar topics, My idea is to organize a giveaway for a 1-year Curiosity Stream subscription plan once we reach 250 subscribers. This giveaway will serve as a token of appreciation for your support thus far. I'm genuinely grateful to have you all here with me. Comment down below if you have any recommendations for my future uploads. I am Alex, and this was Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe.